It feels like a lot of agencies have tested or trialed or changed a lot of their different tools and methods that they're utilizing internally. What's been most impactful for each of you this year as far as tools and processes, and what's changed with so much having changed this year?
We've played with Search Atlas. We're a channel partner with SEMrush, and we've played with their AIO as well as their enterprise suite quite a bit. And there's a lot of really interesting insights and synthetic prompts and things that you can test with and kind of see what a visibility is.
We built a Slack channel just for AI, so as people figure out some new tool, and like want to share it and help each other, because like it says, it's moving so fast.
I think the crux is our company values, because with those values in place, it empowers my team to be a little bit more free in experimenting and testing and knowing that they're doing it in ways that are right for our company and right for our customers.
A lot of my peers have raced to sort of save money by using AI in that regards. For us, it's mostly about, like with SEMrush, about getting the analytics back that we can then manually do.
All right, welcome to another episode of SEO on Air. Today we have four great guests with. I wanted each of you to get a chance to introduce yourself. Don't think it's a test. You're all great guests. So just give us a little background on your experience for the viewers to let them know who they're hearing from today. And I'll start by just saying, Darin, give us an introduction to who you are and your experience that you have.
Okay, I'm Darin Fenn, founder of Legal Rev. We do end-to-end digital marketing for several hundred law firms across the U.S. Been doing it for about 15 years. My background was actually in film production, and I worked on the film side of commercials and advertising. So I got a glimpse of how the advertising industry works and ended up in this by accident. But I thought it was a really interesting field to get into, digital marketing, back in 2010. And it's turned into a long-term business for me that I really enjoy.
I like it. Regardless of why you started it, you've got 15 years of experience in SEO now. It's amazing.
I have become something of a specialist in marketing for U.S. law firms. Yeah,
we're happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us, Darin. Ashley, please.
Hi, I'm Ashley Rodriguez. I'm the head of SEO at Doublespace Agency. I have 12 years of experience, and I started with SEO just because I like the game of it, and I like that I can prove that I've done something and I can show you where I've brought in revenue for you. And so it's just kind of a passion for me.
Love it. The game's a fun way to talk about it. I think that's one of the hyper optimization aspects that people love about SEO, is there's always something to play with and tinker with to make things better.
Yes, my name is Broetje, founder of Odd Dog here in Seattle. I started in this industry in 2004. One of my boss at the time said, "Hey, go take a look at this Google thing. I think it's going to be big for our SaaS-based startup I was working for." It's been a very deep rabbit hole ever since then. So started Odd Dog in 2008, also by accident. So I don't have any actual agency experience. I really came out of the in-house world. And so because of that, we kind of take a holistic approach to building a complete strategy. So all the pieces of digital marketing, the web build, the SEO, the SEM, social media, all of that kind of flows cohesively. And our clients don't have to herd cats between a bunch of different vendors. Specialty for us is in multi-location, especially multi-location SEO and SEM, and building out scalable ways for businesses to build more locations.
I love the herding cats. I have seen some agencies will not even take a customer on unless they can guarantee that they have enough control to make them successful, where they don't want to be battling another agency to make things not work out. So appreciate that perspective. Happy to have you here, Adam. Steve, your turn.
It's funny. Adam and I share similar clients. We have multi-location and franchise brands, so we work with a lot of public storages and Applebee's and IHOPs and so forth. So what a coincidence. It's very cool. My time in SEO dates back to 1998 when Google was still back rub for half a second, right? So I've been in the industry a long time. I've written a lot of information products back in my heyday. I hail from a time working at Disney Parks and Resorts Online, one of my favorite moments in my career. I left the corporate agency world around 2010, started a little consultancy here in La Mirada. I've co-written a textbook called SEO Strategy and Skills that's now used by 45 universities, including Harvard and online extensions. And I moonlight as an adjunct professor at Cal State Fullerton and UC San Diego. So live and breathe and love all things search.
I appreciate you being here. That's fun to have some overlap in the industries too. Discussion we've had in the podcast is just how much space there is for everybody, and not seeing it as competition, but definitely collaboration. There's so much to learn from each other. We're excited to have you all here. To start, the first question I had was based on a little bit of an experience I had recently where a friend was starting a company and they were asking about some of the SEO strategy. And what happened was I sent some information over to him and then I never heard back. And I wasn't even trying to sell him anything. I was just trying to connect him to the right people. And I was thinking about how complex it is to work with companies that may or may not understand the real value of SEO. And I wanted to know, I mean, this is almost the beginning of your guys' experience. Everyone here has so much experience in conversations with SEO that it's kind of going to the basics of, if a customer doesn't understand the value of SEO, what's your go-to in trying to build that value for them, to help them, to enlighten them to understand why it's so important? I want to hear from you guys how you're going about it. Yeah.
I can tell you the outbound side of sales. You're always having to quantify yourselves because you're the ones that came to them, and you're always having to prove yourselves. I can tell you the best clients are ones that come to you. They're referred by you. They saw you speak at an event. They read about your brand somewhere. They watched a video on some social media site. So starting with, I think, not even needing to quantify yourselves is avoid outbound in the agency world of SEO if you're able to, and focus on inbound. Way that we've kind of proven the value of it is creating a sense of deficit and showing them, hey, last year you lost out on about this many visits, which on an average order value of X and average click-through rate of Y and a conversion rate of Z, here's how much potential revenue might have been on the table last year. It could take 1 to 2, maybe even 3 years to hit a point where you're in the top 3 results for this array of search terms. But if you can get there, this is what it could mean to you over 3 to 5 years. So for me, it's kind of building out a little bit of an estimate or a forecast, and maybe even break it down by department or business objective. So for restaurant chains, takeout and delivery, have different values than things like their specials and other things that they have going on. So that's been our trick, is just kind of putting together a forecast and creating that sense of deficit. That's the number one way I've found for clients to say, yeah, I don't want to lose out on another $1 million next year. Let's get with these guys and create this specialty intent page, whatever that means, and see if it actually works for us.
Piggybacking on the back of that, Steve, you hit on a good point of being accountable to it. With us, it's number one, it's the analytics of it and what are we measuring? And if that isn't right, then we're wasting our time. It's the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. Like if we're not actually, bringing in the right data, the right information from our campaigns, then we don't know if it's working. And from a statistical standpoint, there's also, you got to have enough data to be statistically significant to know and understand, is this actually working? And that's where in the world of SEO, it's time and investment from like money and as well as just a time investment that we ask for from our clients. But then on the paid side, it's, are we actually putting enough money into this to really know? You don't want to dip a toe and go spend $1,000 in a month and then say, is this working or not? It's like, that may just be like the audience size you're attacking may just be way too small for that. And so helping our clients understand like both the importance of the analytics and really being sure that that is accurate or measuring the right things. But then also the size of the investment in it to know, are those numbers real? Can we trust them and do they scale?
And you might not see the fruits of that $1,000 for 6 to 8 months from now.
Yeah, I always try to tell my clients, and I've talked about this before, you have to have those numbers and stuff, but I think a lot of them, they don't understand that SEO is an evergreen product and it takes a while and organic. And so the way I kind of try to dumb it down for people is, like I say, it's like building a house. So you have to fill those, traditional, like, foundation stuff is what's on the back end. What is those things? And then you're building the walls, and then you're building everything else. And so that it takes time. It takes time to build a house, and you can't, if you haven't even built your foundation, you're obviously not going to be ranking in AI, which is the
Yeah, you're set it, forget it on that too, is an analogy. Could also transition over to trees, right? We use trees as an example, because then you have to pour water and sunlight on it. Like, hey, this SEO worked for 10 years. My house was perfect for 10 years. Now all of a sudden it's not. You just need to fine tune and tweak something. It's like, maybe it's time to redesign, right? So, but the water and sunlight part definitely makes a difference sometimes when you're trying to articulate, what SEO is, the living, breathing thing, not just set it, forget it.
I tell people it's your internet rent.
Nice.
Think of it as a utility, right? This is your rent to be on the internet. How nice of a place do you want? And, you're going to have to spend a basic benchmark budget in order to achieve basic visibility, right? I think Ashley hit it on the head in that, hey, most of the people don't really understand it. My clients do not want to understand it. They just care about the ROI, right? And so we are, speaking to what Adam's talking about, we're obsessed with data, right? It's all about transparency of data. We spend an enormous amount of time building out our dashboard for our clients and having as close to real-time data as possible, not a report that we send them that shows what we want. We show everything. We show the good, we show the bad. We track every possible thing we can. We put, heat mapping on their sites. If we can integrate with, we're a Clio partner and a HubSpot partner, so we do like actual HubSpot custom integrations and Clio integrations for clients. So if we can access their CRM or their case management software, we'll track the entire life cycle of a client and work with them from the point that they see the firm's brand wherever it is, social media or on an ad or on an AI search or something, and we'll track that all the way through to completion of the whatever the client product is, whatever the case is or something like that, to then a follow-up email campaign and a review request campaign. We want to see every single thing. You're absolutely right, Adam. Like if you're in the dark, you don't know what's working. I think it's true of any business, right? If you don't know the numbers, you don't know what you're doing. With SEO, because it's intangible, it's really important to be able to identify what's happening. Not necessarily even to show the client, but so that we can do a better job. We can say, all right, well, this campaign worked. We're running 8 different paid campaigns. Which one is converting? But not only which is converting, but which is converting to the kind of customers you want, right? The best converting one might be getting you the lowest, you're talking about Applebee's, whatever. The best converting ad might be getting the people that just come in for coffee and pie, right? When what you really want is the whole family to come in for a Sunday dinner, right? But that is a less well converting ad, but 5 times revenue, result. So maybe we should put the money there.
So you're saying it's about solving for business objectives and measuring the success of those business objectives, not just conveyor belt SEO. I love that.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just task. Like anyone can do a task, check it off.
And it won't work long term, right? I mean, the goal, I think with all of us, this is a recurring business, right? You want to keep those clients. I don't know about you, but we spend an enormous amount of work at the beginning of a client life cycle, right? Onboarding them and doing all the work. We got to keep them if we want this to be profitable. So we want to keep them. Our average client stays with us like 7 years. Some of that is because of the industry, but a lot of that is that we set reasonable expectations, and we try to, under promise and then show the data. One thing I've found very valuable, Koa, you were talking about things that we share with other firms. We try to benchmark as completely as possible exactly where they are when they onboard.
So that actually was a question I was going to ask the group here is what I have seen in the past was taking like a website analysis tool to try to get a perspective of where they are today. But I've also seen that website analysis tool be abused to the point where you could create red flags wherever you wanted and show the customer that you're going to turn them all green, even if their practice or their current website SEO was established in a position where it was in great shape. They can be manipulated, and I don't want to attack anybody here, but I've seen that as like almost a red flag in agencies today. So how are you benchmarking it? Yeah, how are you guys benchmarking that starting point?
When I talk about benchmarking, I'm not talking about giving their website audit, because you could run that on any of our websites and it's going to throw up hopefully orange flags. But when I say benchmark, I mean, how much traffic are you getting? How much business are you bringing in? What is your goal? What is 1 year? What does success look like based on where we are now? Right? So that they can't come back and say, we haven't had any success. Well, we can specifically look at the increase in phone calls, or the increase in contact forms, or the increase of conversions if we have access to their conversion tracking. So I think it's less about, how many, keywords do you have on, page one, but how many of those keywords actually matter? How many keywords do you have on page one that are actually bringing you business that anybody's searching?
So one of the complicated parts of that would be to pull that out of the customers. Ashley, Adam, and Steve,
Oh, absolutely.
how are you able to pull that information out of your customers? Because
The paid search side's the easiest way because you can see your search term, the actual query reports and paid ads, and see what search terms actually convert into customers. So if they have access to that data because they've been doing paid search, that could be the catalyst to driving a data-driven SEO campaign. But a lot of the times they don't, or they've got crazy broad match and display campaigns and AI things going on where you don't really get a lot of search term data. So you end up starting with metrics that are, like we'd mentioned, traffic, conversions. What are their business objectives? You mentioned Applebee's earlier. Loyalty is a big part of that. How many folks are signing up for the newsletter that come in from search? And so, taking those metrics that are important to the business, seeing where they're at now, what their normal seasonality is. In our Looker Studio, we have a seasonality graph that shows year versus year versus year, so we can see when there's normal kind of ups and downs, and trend against those. And what's great about having the KPI dashboard in the beginning is that the key stakeholders will hang out, they'll listen to the industry news slide, and then we jump into the KPIs, and there's these cool little gauges. Here's what our plan was for the year, was to hit a 10% growth in organic search. We're into February, we're X% toward hitting that goal. We're on pace, and it says green, on pace, for hitting that goal. Here's revenue, here's loyalty signups. Some will have things like our tech score, because tech might be a real issue if they're on some homemade CMS or something. So we'll have our little tech gauge as well. So every stakeholder on the call gets to see those gauges in the beginning, and some of them will drop off after that. Everything's green, I'm happy, I got things to do. But if something's red, they'll stay on to see what's going on. Is it a shift in Google's algorithm? Is there a change in SERP appearance with AI overviews now and things like that? They want to hear about why we're not on pace if we're not. It's very rare, but it does happen. But I think that benchmarking is critical, because now you know what you're measuring against, and being able to see those gauges every month really helps the client know whether we're on pace or not.
In our perspective, what I teach my clients and my team is that we are being hired to help drive revenue. Ideally, more revenue than what they're paying us. That puts us into the bucket of success. And when customers come in, most of the time they don't have a CRM integration, as Darin was talking about, and they don't actually know what their current efforts or historical efforts have done as far as driving revenue. So the best thing we can do is teach them, that is our holy grail of what we want to get to. All the other numbers that SEO people are known for showing and displaying on fancy reports and graphs, are usually indicators. We think more traffic is gonna lead to more revenue. We think that higher rankings is gonna lead to more revenue. In most cases, it does. But those are really just more directional pointers towards the end result of driving more revenue. So exactly. So as long as we teach our clients about this and make sure that they know and understand, we have the option of doing this full CRM integration. It's going to cost money. It's going to take time. But if we can get it, awesome. Now you know the money I paid Odd Dog or any other agency is hopefully less than what I'm getting out at the end of the day in terms of like more customers, larger customers, more loyal customers, all of the above. And so letting them know again, coming down to that data is the most important part of gauging, is this successful or not?
It's all they care about. Brand recognition is not something that they can even, most businesses aren't really thinking of that somehow has a result down line. It's just, how much am I making now? Can you make me more money? My clients are even more transactional than most, right? Lawyers, it's just purely transactional.
So there's a bit of your customers chasing revenue, but everything that's advertised to them is telling them that AI is the way to do it. Or it's almost like I think it's the joke about like pharmaceuticals being in commercials, and like you're trying to put it right in front of their face so that they'll go out and buy the pill, but they may not know what they need. They still need a doctor to prescribe it. Stan Ventures is a bit of a plug for us, but we're a fulfillment agency. Like we drive fulfillment, which I think was really cool. Ashley, you mentioned SEO was not a task-based thing just briefly there. When I lean on agencies, we're like, you have to run the strategy, but your customers are obviously running the budget. They give you the money to work with. And many of them are being like having many things promoted to them that they think they need, whether it's an AI tool, whether it's the new shiny object, whatever it might be. How are you able to navigate? This is kind of a two-part question, but how are you able to navigate what your customer really needs versus what they're wanting? And how do you determine which customers are actually valid? Darin, reverting back to what you said just a second ago, that they're not necessarily chasing brand mentions unless they start telling you that they want to chase brand mentions, and they may or may not be willing to invest in that. So tell me, who do you think deserves brand mentions, and how are you really navigating customers that are telling you what they want when you're supposed to lead the strategy?
I think, well, for me, so I break it down. Like, as y'all said before, the revenue, we have to know where that base is. And then a lot of people, they come in like, oh, well, I've heard from XYZ, I need to have keywords. And so then I'm like, well, sure, but that doesn't matter. I break it down to, what are your customers telling you? What are the problems? Do you have any type of communication with your customers that says, I'm having this issue and I'm having that issue? Because that's where you have to find your keywords or whatever, because that's the customer. That's the one that's how they're looking for you, is by their problems. So I try to dig in deeper of like, do they really know their business problems and their customers' problems, and kind of go from there. And then for our mom and pops, I tell them, like, back to the house, like, you're at foundation level. We need to get there. We need to get your revenue up. At this point, AI is the shiny new trend. If you think about it in a recipe, right? So you have all the ingredients of SEO in a recipe, and AI is just that extra flavor, extra spice that you put in it. And until you have the rest of that built, like, you can't add in the pepper until you have, the rest of your ingredients. So for brand mentions, for us, at least in our bigger clients that are the $1 million, $1 trillion companies, they already have that brand established. So it's easy to put that AI factor, and they can put the money into doing more brand mentions that are going to be pulling in. But they're naturally, if you do what I say, search everywhere, and you're pulling in, Reddit and YouTube and, your PR, like, you're going to be found without having to do anything extra.
It's a neat way to think about it. I know we get asked more often than ever about AI. When we get an inbound, it's not help us with a multi-location strategy across data and page optimization and reputation. It's we don't know what we should be doing, if anything, about ChatGPT, and is Google going away, and ChatGPT and Perplexity going to be the new way people find us. And the trend that I see is a couple of things. I see the uncertainty right? Everyone's kind of uncertain and have a lot of anxiety. I also see a lot of imposter syndrome happening with the SEO specialists. A lot of the folks that have done things the same way, focus on content and relevancy and off-page SEO and influencing user behavior signals like click and being the final URL somebody stays on. Are they enough? Do we need to now evolve or completely change how we look at SEO? And what we've been trying to convey is based on the data that we're seeing and the 0.04% of traffic coming from Perplexity and ChatGPT to some of our multi-location restaurant chains, that it isn't something to panic about, but it is something that we should start adopting into and adding to how we're approaching SEO. But it's not going to be, you're going to suddenly lose all of your online orders and foot traffic and UTM'd links from your Google Maps to locations. We're not going to lose that, at least not immediately. But we need to start thinking about how we're writing and how we're looking at, like you said, the search everything effect. So we say basically that most users 5 years ago would go to Google, perform a search, click on a blue link or black text, interact and be done. And now they're going to Google for a non-branded query. They're finding a ton of different results to choose from. They're going to ChatGPT and Reddit and all these other LLMs and places to look at options and do their research on a brand. And they're going to social search. You'd mentioned like YouTube or maybe even Instagram or Facebook, and they're looking at what their peers and social influencers say about a particular brand or who to choose for a product or service. And then later they're coming back and doing a branded search based on what they found, or they're going to do that non-branded search again and recognize your brand from its prominence across the LLM and social search ecosystems and choose you. This is why everyone was so up in arms when Danny Sullivan mentioned brand at one of the Google I/Os. It's like, it's not fair, brands get bigger or more credibility, more attention. He's like, it's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is it's important to build your brand so that you're recognizable and people want to choose you more often, because that user behavior signal is what's going to draw the inference that you're a helpful result. So I think our approach evolves, but there's no panic. We look at the data. There's no reason to set off an alarm. But there are some things that we can start doing. And from the tech side, making sure LLMs can crawl and access our content. From the content side, making sure we're revisiting our pillar and cluster peripheral content, maybe even at the local level for our multi-location brands within 10 pages. And looking at our off-page approach. How do we get our clients, our customers, our vendors, our partners, our employees, to play a role in making sure that those brand mentions happen through the spaces and citation sources that matter, the Reddits, the Quoras, the TripAdvisors, and so forth. So I think that's again, it's a different perspective, but it's not something revolutionary by any means. It's more of just an add-on and a little more for us to learn and incorporate into what we're already doing.
100%. I'm 100% in Steve's camp on that. That's basically our approach. Although I think the legal industry is something that people are using AI search more for than, say, a restaurant search or something like that. I don't actually know that.
I got an email yesterday from our client that got a lead from ChatGPT and reached out to thank us. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot. I mean, we're seeing our clients are saying, they're getting 4 or 5 leads a month now through ChatGPT searches. And did you do something for that? Sure, we did. And we did, right? We made some structural changes to all the websites, but I mean, no, like you said, it's most of the core quality SEO work is carrying over to AI.
And I think it's industry specific, like as you said, like some like law, people are asking more of those questions, but I think also we do have to kind of plan for like there's a part where people are booking their whole trips on ChatGPT and having them do it for you, and booking their reservations at a restaurant. So that is kind of where you would want to focus it on those industries and making sure you get ahead of the game on those, because I think that's going to come first, like your shopping experiences and booking things through there versus some other industries.
I remember when social media first came out, way back in the day, and you hear business owners buzzing about it and like, we need to be doing this and it's the big new thing. And they just have this idea that like investing in this is just going to mean business success because of all the buzz that's out there. And I feel like AI is like the next wave of this that we've seen. And I tell my customers, like, every carpenter has a hammer. How they use that hammer really defines how good they are at their trade. And there's going to be some that are amazing and artists and excellent. And there's going to be some that just, like me at home on a home DIY project, just smacking that thing around and who knows what's going to happen. Um, and so when I talk about how we as an agency do it, it's like we spend a lot of time investing in teaching our team what are the ways in which we can use that tool, how can we be expert about it, working with us as an agency and how we adopt AI is nothing like the average business owner who just goes to ChatGPT and says, what should I do for SEO? They're wildly different applications of the same tool. And so we do see this tool changing the landscape a little bit. It's exciting when I hear customers say, oh yeah, Adam, I found Odd Dog both on Google and then I checked ChatGPT and I found you there too. And like that increases the level of authority and confidence that they have in us, that you appear in multiple places. And we try to apply the same thing to our clients and customers. So it's a new tool. It's fun. It's shiny. It's exciting. But the businesses that really adopt and invest in it are going to be the ones that are come out as the artists in the trade.
If I have one more student write their paper with ChatGPT, I'm going to lose my mind. But yeah, you're right. I live and breathe in it too. My Route 66 plans are all set thanks to ChatGPT for next year. So yeah, I think it's a great utility. And I agree. It really depends on the industry too, because our clients are really focused on transactional queries. If someone's looking for breakfast delivery or lunch specials or things like that. It drives foot traffic, it drives business online orders and so forth. But if you are in a industry where it's really content heavy, maybe healthcare, for example, there's definitely going to be a little bit of a ratio difference in what comes from LLMs and what comes from traditional search.
We had a customer or a partner that mentioned that they had a garage door company that they worked with that was ranking organically for how to reprogram your garage door remote on Google, and was getting tons and tons of traffic for it for years, until recently when AI started answering that question and people no longer went to their website to learn how to redo it, how to reprogram their remote. They just found it on AI. So they just took the instructions. And I think that the company could have been scared about losing a lot of traffic. And it was interesting that they fully embraced, well, now we're going to be seen on AI. And so they're like, let's do more content so we can be seen even more often. And it was an interesting, there's enough for everybody opportunity. Instead of feeling like competition, they're just like, well, that's where we want to be visible then, if that's where eyes are going to be seeing us. And they just adopted that strategy. But I think at their level, they were able to invest in broader visibility on that instead of focusing on just their local market or the service that applied to them directly.
Well, you look at the collateral benefit of doing that. If someone's doing research for their own article and they find your answer in a citation in ChatGPT or in AI mode or whatever, you're going to get referenced, mentioned, brand mention, maybe even a link, which will help you get crawled and found more often and still pass PageRank in Google's traditional algorithm. So to me, it's like, why not keep creating amazing content that people are going to want to share and reference? And why not make it super easy for them to share? Even Google Documents, when you're reading through them, have a little link icon that you can hover over and link directly to that section, or even copy, the content of that section for the citations and the syndication of that piece of content that you want the LLMs to use as a confidence signal of your answer being the best answer. So I feel there's so much benefit, even if you're losing out on some of that click traffic, in generating all of that really great upper funnel content. So we're not going to stop by any means, and doing ontology research and building out a site taxonomy and building out a site structure that's based on that pillar and cluster content architecture, I think is still paramount, maybe more now than ever, to build more of that relevancy and authority and expertise and experience signals that that we know Google and users pay attention to. So yeah, I think it's great for those competitors that want to stop doing that. It's just going to help our clients.
Yeah, I also saw an agency that said that they were getting their TikToks viewed through the LLMs. He was recording short TikTok videos about how to do your marketing services, and his customers were looking him up after they found the website on LLMs.
I've seen that too. Now imagine you can get 1,000 of your customers to do that TikTok with some specific verbiage and a note for that. And those URLs get crawled. Think about what that could do for your knowledge graph and correlating your brand to a specific entity or vector. I think that's it's a brilliant way to build brand awareness, and maybe even a few influencers will get involved, and you'll get some real customers from it too.
It was really fascinating to me that it even came after he landed on on this agency's website. That he's like, now I need to do additional research because I don't just trust their website. Now he's asking LLMs about this specific individual to see if he's got a brand, like if he's got something that he feels like he should trust. And that was really a unique take that I hadn't seen very often. The next question, it's really about what's working for you guys. And so we've seen a lot of tools come out. We've seen, and I'll reference a few, like Profound has been brought up quite often on this podcast as like an AI tool. Ahrefs obviously has changed some stuff. Scrunch is another company I've heard from. I don't necessarily just want to know the AI tools you're using, but this year, it feels like a lot of agencies have tested or trialed or changed a lot of their different tools and methods that they're utilizing internally. What's been most impactful for each of you this year as far as tools and processes, and what's changed with so much having changed this year?
I've got an old school answer for you. With me, I think the crux is our company values, because with those values in place, it empowers my team to be a little bit more free in experimenting and testing and knowing that they're doing it in ways that are right for our company and right for our customers. I think the craziest thing about AI and a bunch of the new trends is how fast they move. It was hard enough as an agency keeping up with things when it was just Google and then Google and social media. And now you throw this on top, and it is just a train of information and new tools and new things coming at us, not to mention the cold calls from every single one of them. Um, and making sure that our team is free and knows what are the bounds by which they can go and do this. What are the safety and security protocols? What responsibility do we have to our customers and clients to be sure that their data is secure and protected while we're going out and using these pieces? And so it's just funny how it keeps coming back to these old school values that we established a long time ago, that help us to make hard decisions as an agency, and smart investments as we go forward. And so my team knows, hey, yes, I'm free to go do this because I'm following these core values that we have. It's new territory. There isn't a playbook for it yet. We're figuring it out. And to me, that's been the most fun part of the job, is the variety and the newness, and kind of the excitement of some of those fun new things we get to tinker and test with.
Oh man, all the black hat stuff people are doing. Yeah, go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, well, and for us, it's the same thing, kind of like that. We've invested more time on like cross-promoting our teams together, making sure we're spending more time together. We built a Slack channel just for AI, so as people figure out some new tool, and like want to share it and help each other, because like it says, it's moving so fast that like, and one tool, like it doesn't have that ROI. We started, we're like, we don't like that, switch. So it hasn't been really one specific thing. I mean, I think they're all similar where they are right now because everybody has the same amount of data, which is not much for AI. So it's just really, collaborating as a team, making sure that all the silos are not siloed and we're all together and we're making that a whole, search everything and help each other kind of go through it.
We're using definitely a lot of different AI tools, and we embrace them. Aside from content writing, right? We of course are thinking about 3 years down the road, and we don't want our content to be just another regurgitated version of something else. We want to really focus in on uniqueness and firsthand experience and video, a multimodal approach with images and things that we create that make our pages more helpful and more unique. Maybe even adding some audio to pages, like read this page. All of that can be extracted by the LLMs and search engines. So our approach is still the same, right? It's, what is it Jim Rohn says, that you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. And in that process, we're learning how to use these tools in a way to enhance what we're doing for our clients, and not using it as a way to create shortcuts or to do something that may later on come back and work against us. So other tools we've played with, so Search Atlas, we're a channel partner with SEMrush, and we've played with their AIO as well as their enterprise suite quite a bit, and there's a lot of really interesting insights and synthetic prompts and things that you can test with and kind of see what visibility is. You can start to create a little bit of a visibility score, which I think is interesting, because that scoring is something you can kind of baseline off of. What is entailed in that score is likely going to be completely different in a year from now. So I don't know that measuring the score right now against what the score is going to be in a year from now are going to mean the same things. So I don't know if I would make them a key metric. I think I would still find it interesting to watch and monitor and pay attention to. But we're paying attention to traditional indicators and using revenue and data as kind of our foundation of how we build things. Other AI tools we use. We've experimented with Nightwatch. The search atlas, by the way, the reason we kind of stopped using it, we still kind of have access for the time being because we got a really good relationship with them. We started talking and had some ideas, so they kept us on. But what I didn't like was that when you make changes to things using some of their AI suggestions, like titles and meta descriptions, all of that gets saved on the cloud and not actually stored on your website. So for some reason, you get disconnected from Search Atlas in their cloud. Everything reverts back to before you started using them, which is a little bit scary. So be careful.
Just cross that one off my list. I'm writing down tools
That might change though. I mean, you never know, but that's what we saw at first glance in our suggestion. There's some really good ideas that AI produces when you write the logic for creating really strong metadata. But aside from that, other tools we're using AI. We do have a lot of custom GPTs that we've created to help with certain processes to streamline things like creating a content brief. We take an aggregate of competitive insights from what we learned from the top ranking pages in terms of their topics and vectors and entities and keywords, and kind of cull it all together and create a beautiful table of contents that includes specific features that we know benefit SEO, the TLDR at the top for the summary or feature snippet, the FAQs for a lot of the prompts and things that are kind of short answers, as well as the topics and subtopics that are included in competing pages that we might want to incorporate into our page to have all the same things and be in the same content space as what the top ranking pages are. So there are some things there that we'll do with AI, but we're not 100% in love with and bought into one particular piece of software. I think like everybody, we're just experimenting and playing around with things, and a lot of what we purchased a year ago, we don't have anymore simply because it just wasn't showing value.
Funny to talk about. I've seen a lot of companies leave conferences with a lot of free trials and tried all of them and said they're all pretty good. Maybe not worth the $400 a month they want from me or whatever it would be.
No, we're very slow adopters, I think, and perhaps it's just the vertical that we're in. And also, I mean, I think unique in this conversation is I'm not an SEO, right? So, I've got probably you would get a better answer from my CTO. So I'm more of marketing and customer relations in terms of what I spend my day on. But I do know that we have historically been careful, thoughtful in our approach to new tools. Slow and steady wins the race, in my view. We are an SEMrush enterprise partner, so we've gotten access to those tools. That's probably been the most impressive suite of tools that I've seen. I personally have no idea how to use it, but I know the team has been incorporating that into our workflow. When clients ask us about AI, are we using AI? We say we've been using AI for a decade. We were using Jarvis 10 years ago, right? So, to Adam's analogy, I mean, it's just an increasingly effective suite of power tools that you can use, but really it comes down to the technician using them. I will say that on the hammer spectrum, AI is akin to the pneumatic hammer, which completely changes things, right? It does it so much faster than an actual hammer can do that it allows for rapid growth, but it's also way more dangerous, right? So you can hurt yourself with a hammer, but you can kill yourself with a pneumatic hammer, right? So with an air hammer. So, we want to be very careful about what we do in terms of using AI. We're also, like Steve, I'm an evangelist for unique content, original content. We've experimented around, but we've never used AI to write any of our content. We're essentially a content marketing company. All right. We write hundreds and hundreds of blogs every month. I'm a believer that will come back to haunt people. I know a lot of my peers have raced to sort of save money by using AI in that regards. For us, it's mostly about, like with SEMrush, about getting the analytics back that we can then manually do. Using AI to power our SEO, I'm not a believer that that's the key to success. I think old school. And look, I love what you said, Adam. I mean, I think I give my team a lot of freedom to experiment in our sandbox, and then we implement things as when we all agree they're for the benefit of the clients. But giving people a space to experiment and be free and have fun with these new tools that are, I mean, every month things are changing. Yeah, I wish they wouldn't call me so much, but it's super exciting.
I envy the Slack channels in the office, and like there's like right now that it seems like the collaboration that could happen from being in office with your team is so valuable for your individual growth that I envy that. I think that's pretty cool. One thing that I read in a book that I thought was really fascinating was it talked about like what do we actually value in art? Like if someone created something like the light bulb, it's an amazing invention, and they made it all on their own. We value that, but if someone created a light bulb in another country all from their own thought, had no previous experience from the other person's invention, would we still value it, or is it just a light bulb and they didn't actually do anything too amazing because they weren't first? And I think of that with AI content, that we value novelty. And when everyone's creating the same content, do we value it, or is it you're waiting for someone to create something that's so unique that you get excited about it? Even if it was amazing, if you invented it second, you're not really valued or remembered. It's that content that's created that's really unique. And I think that's something that we've missed as companies adopted AI so quickly this year. Is content went from everyone wanting to use AI, and early on in the podcast we saw this trend. It was like, oh yeah, we're fully adopting it. And then we saw it just slowly trickle back down into, yeah, we're using it for editing, but we don't have all the content written by.
They saw the data.
I mean, people value that like human part of it, that story, that connection. You know, AI is always going to be the robot. It's not going to have that empathy. For us, like we do, like Steve said, like those chat GPTs, and we'll make our own for what it is, for like you said, like an editing or whatever. A lot of times I really only use it to research, and then I have some for very specific brands where they're really particular on what their brand says. So then I'll run the final piece that we wrote through that to be like, hey, is there any place where the brand is messed up or where we can add into the brand? And that way it kind of keeps us really good for each individual client because it's going tailored to their brand and their specifics.
Gaps in quality assurance. I think that's amazing. One of the things that we put in our content briefs is an actual audit of a page through SERP Recon that Ryan Jones at Razorfish put together. SERP and then Recon, RECON. And it'll literally take all that kind of entity data that you need and find those missing gaps in the page and give you a score on how that page is doing to perform for a given keyword. It's really kind of cool. But yeah, we love using AI just for that. In fact, yesterday I redid our whole MSA and statement of work templates to align with like California laws and regulations and so forth, you know, and recalibrating where there might be gaps. Like, hey, your SOW's contradicting your MSA on line 7 and whatever. And it's a really great way to improve your documentation and, you know, a lot of really great utilities that come out of it. But for content, yeah, I agree. I think it's not going to add to the personalization and uniqueness of what makes your brand amazing when you have AI write it for you.
That human touch that's needed when you work with an agency instead of just fulfillment. I think that's a key piece of the conversation today is how you guys actually customize your work for the customer. We're out of time. I wish we had more. There was one last question that I wanted to ask you guys, which was, what would you like to hear from other agencies on the podcast? We don't have time for it today, so I may tag you on a message on LinkedIn or something and see if you guys could throw out some questions. But I really appreciate you all being here. I love the conversation we had today. Thanks for being on SEO On Air.